Thank you for joining the Australian community for ANZAC Day 2021. It's nice to hear that back home in Australia we're starting to get the resumption of in-person celebration of ANZAC Day here in New York and of course in many countries across the world. We're not able to do that this year. So what we're doing is what most of us have done for our lives for the last 12 months, which is rely on Zoom, rely on technology to help bring Australians together to commemorate what in many ways is the most important day of the year. We all know the story. In 1915, the Australian and New Zealand soldiers were part of an attempt that was never likely to succeed, to take the Gallipoli Peninsula in Turkey. The valour of those soldiers, their courage, their camaraderie, has in many ways become a defining feature of both Australian and New Zealand nationhood. So today, we simply ask you through the good offices of the Australian community and the technology to come together to remember our soldiers, not just those who died in 1915, but all the soldiers who've died for Australia and indeed for New Zealand over the last 110 or so years. They do represent the finest of our nation, and they have created the sort of country, the sort of freedoms of which we're all so proud. Thank you again for joining the Australian community's celebration of ANZAC Day this year.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this country, also known as Australia. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, spirit and culture. We pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red clouds, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land oh let us rejoice, for we are young and free, with golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing. Advance Australia fair.
God of nations, at thy feet, in the bonds of love we meet. Hear our voices, we entreat. God, defend our free land. God, Pacific's triple star, from the shafts of strife and war, make her praises heard afar. God, defend New Zealand.
My great-great-uncle, Lieutenant Leonard Lewis Wadsley of the 52nd Battalion AIF, was killed on the 3rd of September 1916 at McHugh Farm during the Battle of the Somme in World War I. Len was one of 90 Tasmanians killed in that same battle on that same day. He was 26 years old. His body was never found. My father has Len's beautiful writing box that was sent home after the war. It holds all of Len's letters and postcards home, his medals, and several trinkets, including perfume bottles bought for his sisters while at camp in Egypt. My great-aunt, Emmeline Wellard, also served in the Great War as a nurse and was awarded the Royal Red Cross, a decoration received by only a small number of Tasmanian nurses. We also have her medals, including the British War Medal, British General Service Medal, the Victory Medal, and the India General Service Medal. Apparently, she was one of the most decorated Tasmanian nurses to have served during World War I. It was through these possessions and the knowledge and passion of my dad that I grew up learning about my Uncle Len, Auntie Em, the ANZACs, and their service. In 2005, I was fortunate enough to be one of 6 Tasmanian students who won a trip to Turkey, Belgium, and France as part of the Frank McDonald Memorial Prize. This journey included attending the 90th anniversary Anzac Day dawn service at Anzac Cove in Gallipoli, 2006. But the most special and memorable part of the trip, for me, was getting to visit McHugh Farm, where my uncle was killed. It was hard to believe such devastating conflict had occurred in this place where I sat and laid a poppy for Len. The earth has healed, and lush green grass hides what remains of the war debris and missing men. It is still a working farm today. The only evidence of what happened is the mounds of spent shells and bullets they still plough from the fields every season. 10 years later, on the 100th anniversary of Len's death, I got to return to McHugh Farm, as it was, of course, referred to by the Aussie soldiers, this time to share it with my dad. To have journeyed so far to mourn a relative I had never met, never knew, but have grown up respecting, thankful for his sacrifice and service to Australia, and to stand in his final resting place exactly 100 years later was an incredibly moving experience. I couldn't help picturing the mess and violence, the destruction and pain and senseless death playing out on the same stunning, tranquil fields I saw before me. So many lives taken. Walking among the crops, you can easily find bullets and shrapnel still littering the surface. They estimate it will take another 700 years to fully collect all the spent munitions.
We met people who had come from all over the world to commemorate their ancestors. England, Wales, Ireland, Canada, France, and many other Australians. And for me, that really is the epitome of ANZAC, coming together for a cause, the dedication. My thanks to the Australian and New Zealand communities for providing these commemorations here in New York so that we may honour the service of our countrymen and women. Among my uncle's letters and possessions is his very last letter home, written in the lead up to battle in the event he did not survive. To me, it represents the bravery and stoicism of every single person who served and faced the worst to protect those they love. And today, in remembrance of my uncle and all servicemen and women, past and present, I would like to share his last letter with you. France, 2nd of the 9th, 1916. Dear everybody at home, if you receive this, I will by then have passed to the great beyond. We are just preparing to go in on a fairly large stunt, which may be the end of a good many of us, and I may be one of the number. Up to the present, although I've been in the firing line and about there a good deal, have not yet participated in the actual advance, and now the time comes. Well, I leave myself in the hands of the Almighty and trust him absolutely. You may depend on it. I've done my job and you'll have no need to be ashamed of me. I would have liked to have got back again, but 'twas not meant that I should. Never mind, girls. There'll be someone else to take my place. I'm leaving this with a pal of mine who is on the reserve of officers and is not going in. He will post it for me if I do not come back. Well, Dad, goodbye. Goodbye, girls. Let the remainder of the family know I think of you all and hope to meet you all again later on. 'Tis rotten having to write this, but c'est la guerre. One thing we know, Fritz has a much worse time of it than we do. I guess there'll be great rejoicing when it is all over. We are all thoroughly sick of it. Well, goodbye again to you all. From your son and bro, Len. We will remember them.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears released. How precious deed did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. And when this heart and flesh might fail, and mortal life shall cease, I shall possess within this veil a life of joy and peace.
Thank you to James Boland and the Australian community for the honour of being a part of this ANZAC commemoration. My mother was a nurse and my mum's mum, Nana Nell, was also a nurse. So today I would like to honour the nurses who served. Major Alice Ross King was an Australian civilian and military nurse who took part in both wars. She is one of only 7 women decorated with the Military Medal for Gallantry and was also awarded the esteemed Florence Nightingale Medal by the International Committee of the Red Cross. Shortly after the outbreak of World War I, Alice Ross King, a young nurse from Ballarat, enlisted in the Australian Army Nursing Service. She was posted to Cairo to serve with the 1st Australian General Hospital and then to a clearing station for casualties from Gallipoli. Her diaries can be found at the Australian War Museum in Canberra. The content is extraordinary. Her first entries in January 1915 are funny, flirtatious, rich, curious, alive. Within months, the adventure soon descends into the pressure, horror, and futility of war. The fortnight of April 25th to May 8th, 1915, Major Alice Ross King wrote, April 25th, still on emergency. Off this afternoon, went out, at the invitation of the 2nd Light Horse officers. We requisitioned a motor ambulance. The drive is beautiful. For a long distance, one goes along the Nile, out through Old Cairo, right out in the desert and around some sulphur springs. We had tea at a big palace hotel, then went down to the lines to see the beautiful horses. One of the officers, to the amusement of the others, asked me to go to the picture show in front of them all. April 26, on emergency all day. Nothing special doing. Australian Mail is in, nothing for me. Met X on the roof. Kissed him, but did not mean to do it. Won't let him do that again. April 27th. Emergency all morning. April 28th to May 8th. It's been 10 days since I touched this book. What days. 200 sick came in from Lemnos on this Wednesday, and very sick they were. I was not put on duty that night. On Thursday midday, I was ordered to Luna Park to set up a convalescent station. We arrived there, 3 of us, to find a skating rink with 500 beds. They are made of cane and are exactly like chicken coops. We 3 sisters arrived about 2:30 p.m. Patients started to arrive at the same time. By 4:30 p.m. there were 300 patients. Stretcher cases. They had been wounded Sunday and had not been dressed since. We had no guards. The locals were crowding the doorways. I shall never forget the shock when we saw the men arrive. Covered in blood. Most of them with half their uniform shot or torn away. We found them then that 700 more badly wounded had arrived. All cases who could walk were sent down to us. By night, we had another 500 patients and only 3 nurses and 2 orderlies to cope with the work. There was no pack store. The men had to put their kits under their beds. Most of their kits were covered and stiff with blood and were crawling with lice. The wounded had not had a bath for 6 weeks. We only had provision for bathing them 3 at a time. We could do very little to help the convalescent patients. This is still Thursday. On Friday morning, we arrived to find the place in turmoil. By this time, we have another 780 patients, all pretty sick. The place has become an overflow hospital instead of a convalescent. We are all suffering from shock. The wounds are terrible. The boys are bricks about it too. They tell us terrible tales of the cruelty of the Turks. We got through 800 dressings, attended to them properly, extracted a few bullets. Some of the injuries will require amputation of the limbs. Most were fly-blown. We had really very ill cases. We could not nurse them. They were lying there in misery, and some so weak and miserable the tears were flowing. Flies swarmed all over them, and the heat was suffocating. The lice, the lads, the same pajamas, and sheets used a second time. I went to bed heartbroken. X came around, wanted me to go out with him. I have no time for affairs of that sort just now. Another trainload of 90 wounded arrived. Friday night, we were in op until 1 a.m. 13 operations, 1 arm amputated. New arrivals tell us the Australians cannot make headway. After serving her country for 5 bloody years, Major Alice Ross King was discharged from the Australian Army Nursing Service. In February 1919, on the journey home, she wrote her last diary entry that it seemed pointless to start another diary. There were things she just wanted to remember, and some things she recalled looking at the faces of the young soldiers and wondered how anyone will ever be able to adjust to normal life.
When the war is over, got to get away. Pack my bags to no place, no time, no day. You and I, we used each other's shoulder, still so young, but somehow so much older. How can I go home and not get blown away? Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away. Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away. When the war is over, to start again. Try to hold a trace of what it was back then. You and I, we sent each other stories, just a page I'm lost in all its glories. How can I go home and not get blown away? You and I run our sights out something. Oh, this doesn't mean our days are numbered. I got plans for more than a wanted man. All around this chaos and madness, can't help feeling nothing more than sadness. Only choice to face it the best I can. When the war is over, got to start again. we stand each other's stories. Just a page of life in all its glories. How can I go home when I get blown away? Nobody gonna steal this heart away. Ain't nobody gonna steal. Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away. Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away. Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away.
Just yesterday morning, you let me know you were gone. The suits and the plans they made put an end to you. I walked out this morning and I wrote down this song. I just can't remember who to send it to. Oh, I seen fire, I seen rain, I seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. Won't you look down upon me, Jesus? You gotta help me make a stand. Just got to see me through another day. My body's aching and my time is at hand. I won't make it any other way. Oh, I seen fire and I seen rain. I seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I seen a lonely time when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. I thought I'd see you again. I've been walking my mind to an easy time, my back turned towards the sun. Lord knows when the cold wind blows, it'll turn your head around. Our time on the telephone line and talking about things to come. Sweet dreams and flying machines and pieces on the ground. Oh, I see fire, I see rain, I see sunny days that I thought would never end. Time when I could not find a friend, but I always thought that I'd see you one more time again. I'd see you one last time again. There's just a few things coming my way this time around. I thought I'd see you, gonna see you fire and rain. Thought I'd see you, thought I'd see you fire and rain.
My Country is an iconic patriotic poem about Australia written by Dorothea McKellar at the age of 19 while she was homesick in England. After travelling through Europe extensively with her father during her teenage years, she started writing the poem in London in 1904 and rewrote it several times before her return to Sydney. And I'd like to share it with you now. The love of field and coppice, of green and shaded lanes, of ordered woods and gardens is running in your veins. Strong love of grey-blue distance, brown streams and soft dim skies, I know, but cannot share it. My love is otherwise. I love a sunburnt country, a land of sweeping plains, of ragged mountain ranges, droughts, flooding rains. I love her far horizons. I love her jewel sea, her beauty and her terror, the wide brown land for me. The stark white ring-barked forests, all tragic to the moon, the sapphire-misted mountains, the hot gold hush of noon, green tangle of the brushes where lithe lianas coil, and orchids deck the treetops, and ferns the warm dark soil. Core of my heart, my country, her pitiless blue sky, when sick at heart around us, we see the cattle die. But then the grey clouds gather and we can bless again the drumming of an army, the steady soak of rain. Core of my heart, my country, land of the rainbow gold. For flood and fire and famine, she pays us back threefold. Over the thirsty paddocks, watch after many days, the filmy veil of greenness that thickens as we gaze. An opal-hearted country, a willful, lavish land. All you who have not loved her, you will not understand. Though earth holds many splendours, wherever I may die, I know to what brown country my homing thoughts will fly.
I've been to cities that never closed down, from New York to Rio and old London town. But no matter how far or how wide I roam, I still call Australia home. I'm always traveling, I love being free, and so I keep leaving the sun and the sea. But my heart lies waiting over the foam. I still call Australia home. All the sons and daughters spinning round the world, away from their family and friends. But as the world gets older and colder, it's good to know where your journey ends. And someday we'll all be together once more, when all of the ships come back to the shore. I realize something I've always known. I still call Australia home. But no matter how far Oh, how wide I roam, I still call Australia. I still call Australia. I still call Australia home. But no matter how far or how wide I roam, I still call Australia. We still call Australia. I still call